Welcome. In this session, we are going to learn some top 50 frequently asked question on uh, Amazon Redshift. So the first one is, what is Amazon Redshift? So Amazon Redshift is a fully managed data warehouse. So if you have not gone through the previous session wherein we discussed what is a data warehouse, what is a data mart, what is a data lake, OLAP and OLTP, you may go and check that particular session and find it may be related to this. So when we say Amazon Redshift, it is a fully managed data warehouse. You can have your data in petabyte scale size. That means if you have a size of the database which is in petabyte, or that is you have the perfect solution for your data warehousing solution. You can start with the few GB of a data set in Redshift, and then it can grow up to petabyte. So if you have a petabyte data set in cloud, then you have the best solution, which is Amazon Redshift. And what you can do is you can get meaningful insight out of that data. As per Gartner report, the data which has been produced by the computing system in last 30 years, it is going to be produced in next 4 years. That means the the requirement for the data warehousing solutions will be very huge, and it is almost on the highest requirement, and this is for the data engineer. So when we talk about the cloud-based data warehousing solution, the three top which are coming as of now is Snowflake. You have the Amazon Redshift and Google BigQuery. The next question in this series is, what is the purpose of the Amazon Redshift? So when we say Amazon Redshift, we mean to say that when you wanted to store and analyze petabyte sized data store, you have to use the Amazon Redshift. That means you can store, analyze, and get meaningful data out of the petabyte size data set. And one of the things which is for Amazon Redshift is you can use Amazon Redshift for consolidation of large number of databases into that, because this is one of the open source. So what is being said is that the backbone of Amazon Redshift is PostgreSQL. So whatever you have been doing in Postgre, normally you will be able to do so in Amazon Redshift. Another good question is Amazon Redshift the same as AWS? Not very clear question, but it is something like the way AWS manages its resources, let's say the RDS instances, is Amazon Redshift being managed in the same way? Yes, it is. It is same. So starting from the life cycle, start of the life cycle, which is provisioning, configuration, monitoring, recovery, backup, and all these things will be taken care by the Amazon itself. So it is fully managed service offered by the AWS. Is Amazon Redshift a data warehouse? Yes, Amazon Redshift is a data warehouse which can store and analyze data of petabyte size. So you can start with few GB and then you can scale up to unlimited size of the database. What is the difference between S3 and Redshift? That is question number 5. So S3 stands for Simple Storage Service, which is used for storing the any sort of the data in Amazon Web Service. So this is available as one of the service. You can through some web interface, you can retrieve the data anywhere. With S3, you pay for what you use, but when you talk about Amazon Redshift, it is a data warehousing solution which can store data in petabyte scale. So there is a slight difference between that. That is a data warehousing solution, and Amazon S3 is a storage service. Though S3 can be utilized in multiple ways, but the basic is that is a storage service and it is data warehousing solution. How can we query the Redshift data? So once we ingest the data in Redshift, once we create a cluster, we will see there is a query editor. Using the query editor, we can find out the schema, and we can do a lot of things over there. We will see when we do a demo on this. Is Amazon Redshift a database? When we say database, we talk about two things. One is OLTP and another is OLAP. So Amazon Redshift is an OLAP, which is analytical database, and it is used for large scale of database. That means if you have petabyte of data, then you have to think about this. And back behind the scene, there are large number of nodes that take care of so huge amount of data that has very large capacity in terms of the CPU, memory, and the storage. So is Amazon Redshift a database? It is an OLAP database. It is used for analytical purpose. Next one is Amazon Redshift, a columnar database. Amazon Redshift is a columnar database which is used for analytics and data warehouse solution. When we say the columnar database, that means the data which is normally stored in a relational database, let's say PostgreSQL, which is a standalone, let's say cluster. And when you store the data over there, you will be storing the data in terms of the rows. Just to retrieve the data in a faster way, when the size is in petabyte, you store the data in columnar fashion so that the related data can be fetched very quickly with some inbuilt intelligence massive parallel processing and intelligent hardware. It is possible. And because of the large number of nodes, there is no uh, what do you say, the pressure on the single node. Is Redshift a database or data warehouse? So in the previous slide, we saw that it is an OLAP type of database. If you have to specifically say whether it is a database or a data warehouse, Amazon Redshift is a completely cloud-based Amazon-owned data warehousing solution, and it is based on PostgreSQL, though there is no much technical details available, but it is said that most of the features of Postgre are available, though you are not going to use most of them. You can integrate it with ODBC and JDBC drivers, and probably it is based on Postgre 8.0, and those things I believe it is not revealed. Is Redshift row-based or column-based? That's what we discussed in the previous slide, the normal relational database. Let's say if I say RDS, which is there as one of the service in AWS, and if I talk about the PostgreSQL, it is a row-based database wherein the data is stored in terms of columns and row, and the records can be fetched from the individual rows. But in case of Redshift, the data is stored in the columnar fashion for faster retrieval and storing the related data together. What query language does PostgreSQL use? So if you are using PostgreSQL, sorry, what query language does Redshift use? So Redshift uses the normal PostgreSQL like command. So it uses the SQL query language, which can through which you can create, insert, update, and delete the records. Though we will be using it mostly for running the queries, loading the tables, and modifying some smaller amount of data in the Redshift cluster. Can Redshift, which is a data warehousing solution, can connect to the S3? There are ways through which you can connect your Redshift cluster to the S3. One of the way is through the IAM, wherein you create an identity access management, which is kind of user, and then you attach that particular IAM policy with your cluster, which is your Redshift cluster, and from there, uh, through some means, you will be able to use that. Though we are not going in detail, but this is what it is possible. This is one of the most popular term which is being used is data pipeline in Redshift or any other data warehousing solution. So when you create the data pipeline, that means you define how you are going to put the data inside your data warehousing solution so that you can continuously ingest and monitor the movement of the data. Is Redshift an OLAP? Yes. Though it is based on the PostgreSQL, which is basically primarily being used as the OLTP. But in this case, where in Redshift is based on PostgreSQL, but it is online analytical processing database, and this can be integrated with most of the BI tools for uh, so that you can run complex query against the large data set. There is another popular term which is AWS Glue along with the Redshift. So what is the relationship between AWS Glue and Redshift? So when you wanted to move data to and from the Amazon Redshift cluster, you can use Amazon Glue jobs, which can copy and unload the statements against Amazon Redshift with the maximum throughput. So if you talk about what is, so we saw what it can be used for, but what is actually AWS Glue? So it is an ETL tool which can be used along with your Redshift cluster, and it is fully managed ETL tool that stands for extract, transform, and load. So it is very cost effective, which can categorize your data, it can clean it, it can enrich it, and it can reliably move between different data stores and data stream. And AWS Glue is mainly designed to work with the semi-structured data. Is Redshift same as MySQL? So when we talk about the Redshift, it is a data warehousing solution. So this is more of the read kind. So you will rarely see some of the query which are being used for update purpose. So mostly it is read only. So MySQL is write optimized comparatively as compared to PostgreSQL as Redshift. And MySQL can effectively load small volume of data very frequently, but when we talk about Redshift, it is large amount of data, but it has to be less frequently. How we can transfer the data from Redshift to MySQL? So So when you create a Redshift cluster, you can export the MySQL databases. You can split it into multiple files. You can upload those files to the Amazon S3, and using the copy command, you can load those tables to the Redshift. So this is how you can transfer data to Redshift from MySQL. This is a very popular question, like, is Redshift same as Postgre? Though we say the backbone of Redshift is Postgre, Postgre, which is a, let's say it is, if it is a standalone instance, it uses row-based data to build the tables. But when we talk about Redshift, it is columnar database. That means related rows of the database, they will be categorized into one column for faster accessibility. Postgre is free and open source database, but when we say Redshift, it is a paid service. So this is fully managed paid service. Postgre is good for OLTP transaction, but when we say Redshift, it is meant for analytics purpose. So where does AWS Redshift store data? So Redshift managed storage uses the SSD disk, which are attached to individual, let's say, Redshift RA3 instances for faster local storage, but you can offload your data to the S3 for long-term durable storage. But basically, there will be local storage which are there on the SSD, which are the fast disk. And if you believe and if you estimate the size of your database is going beyond petabyte, though it is able to support that, but if you wanted to move that from high performing disk SSD storage to the Amazon S3, which is a much cheaper storage, you can do that. So that's possible. Is Redshift OLAP or OLTP? This we have already discussed. It is an OLAP database, right? So, so we have to be very specific when we say OLAP or OLTP. So this is OLTP. OLTP is good for where you have to write, where the write is much as compared to read, though there is no such restriction that it cannot be read too much. But when we talk about the OLAP, it is mostly for the read purposes, right? So if it is more write, it is online transaction processing. But if it is more read and large data set, it is OLAP. How is Redshift data stored? So Redshift data is stored in a raw uncompressed format, and you can choose if you have to compress the data. So each column within a table can use different types of compression. Redshift automatically selects the encoding for the columnar compression or select it manually when creating a table. So you can see the Redshift columnar database. This is just a demonstration. So columnar database are typically used to store large amount of data for analysis, for example, BI systems. So what you can do is you can store all records of one field together and and perform analysis on this. Say for example, my first field is first column is serial number, and you have two values over here in the row number 1 and 2. So you can store both of them together for faster retrieval of the data. So this is row based database structure, table structure, and this is column based. What is Amazon Aurora and Redshift we have already discussed. Amazon Aurora is a relational database service, and it offers both PostgreSQL and MySQL as two different options which you can use. But when we talk about the Amazon Redshift, it is a fully managed uh, database service which can scale up to petabytes. Right, so there is a major difference. So this is a relational database engine. This is an OLAP based database engine. So they both are not same. Can Redshift handle unstructured data? Directly, it cannot support unstructured data because this is a relational database based on Postgre. You have to store your data in terms of columnar format for large data set, but using the Redshift spectrum, you can have the querying of unstructured data which are stored in Amazon S3 storage. So we already discussed, is Amazon Redshift a columnar database? Yes. Amazon Redshift is purposely built a columnar database which is suited for the analytics and that is best for data warehousing solution. Why it is so? Because when we talk about the standalone PostgreSQL, a single database connection cannot utilize more than one CPU. But when we talk about Redshift, it is architect for MPP, which is massive parallel processing, which can spread across multiple nodes. Does Redshift supports unstructured data? No, because this is an OLAP and OLAP relational database. That means data has to be in the structured format. It cannot be in unstructured format. If you wanted to put it and use in unstructured format, you can use that S3 storage, and using Redshift Spectrum, you can query it. What are the advantages of Redshift? Redshift uses massive parallel processing because it has a number of nodes. You can have 1 to 128 nodes. You can use the data compression, you can use the query optimization, you can distribute your workload. So if we, in general, if we say MPP, which is massive parallel processing, and you can parallelize your data loading, backup, and restore operations using the Redshift cluster. Does Redshift uses Hadoop? No, it is entirely different architecture and platform. Hadoop is file-based structure, but Redshift is based on RDBMS, which is OLAP. Hadoop uses MapReduce programming, but uh, uh, your Amazon Redshift uses EMR, which is Elastic MapReduce. Is Redshift a data lake? As we discussed, data lake is a platform, or is like a natural lake wherein any sort of water can be ingested. So same is for data lake also. A place where any kind of data can be placed, like structured, semi-structured, unstructured, logs, files, movies, whatever it is. But when we talk about the Redshift, you have to have the structured data. You cannot put it in Redshift directly. You can use the Amazon S3, and that can be integrated using Redshift Spectrum. How does Redshift work? So in Redshift, you have many nodes. So it is cost effective. You can have many nodes as you require according to the size and the performance which you need. So compute nodes are partitioned into slices. Slices receive the part of the memory and the disk space. So you have something called as the leader node, which distributes the data to the slides and allocate parts of those queries to the slices. And the slices work in parallel to perform the operations. Very popular question is Postgre built on is Redshift built on Postgre? Yes, it is said that Amazon Redshift is based on PostgreSQL. It is OLAP and BI, and it is assumed it is still on Postgre 8 features it is using. This is proprietary, so no, not more details are available. Uh, though we say it is built on Postgre, but there are fundamental differences, like your Postgre is having the data in row format, but here the data is stored into columnar format, and there are many more differences. Is Redshift built on Postgre? Yes, that's a very popular question. So there are some 3 or 4 copies of the similar type of question. It is the basic difference is the row and the columns, and the intelligent hardware which is available in Amazon Redshift, which uses the optimum memory and disk I/O. Though Postgre can be used for smaller OLTP database environment, but Postgre is built for terabyte and exabyte of petabyte and exabyte of data set, and you can query against those data volume. How many nodes can Redshift have? Redshift can have between anything 1 to 128 compute node, depending upon what types of node you are selecting. So there are restrictions so that you have to think about. So when we talk about a cluster in a Redshift or cluster in a Postgre, it is entirely different. Here, cluster is actually the cluster. So it is the core unit of operation in Amazon Redshift Data Warehouse. It consists of 2 things. It consists of the compute node, and and it has its own dedicated CPU and the storage. The compute node stores data and they execute query and can have many nodes in one cluster. When are we supposed to use the Redshift? When your data size is in petabytes and you have to analyze those, you have to use the BI tool. Then if you have to use the massive parallel processing feature, then in that case you can use that. Is Redshift good for analytics? Yes. Of course it is good because of the speed, because of the different features like parallel data loading, parallel backup, parallel restoration, massive parallel processing. You have everything. Is Redshift for big data? So customer uses Redshift for anything from accelerating this to accelerating the existing data warehouse solutions to ingesting weblogs for big data analytics. So it is used like that. So Amazon Redshift is fully managed. It has a lot of features which we have discussed earlier. So it can be used. Is Redshift a data lake or the data warehouse? So we have already discussed it many times. So it is just a data warehouse. It cannot be used as the data lake. If you have to use it like that, you have to use it along with the uh, Redshift spectrum. What are the different top warehouse providers and their solutions? So we talk about some of the three big ones which are available. You have the Redshift, Google BigQuery, you have Snowflake, and there are many more, but these are very commonly used. Is Redshift better than Snowflake? Snowflake is better option as compared to Redshift in many of ways. But when we talk about the costing, Redshift is cost efficient data warehousing solution offered by Amazon. Is Snowflake more expensive than Redshift? Yes. In terms of the costing, your Snowflake is quite expensive than Redshift because you have some relaxation given in Redshift that you can reserve the instances for the longer term, and those are some of the basic things. But Snowflake it charges for your warehousing and computing solutions. How does Redshift differ from Snowflake? So Snowflake has separated both compute from the storage, so allowing for flexible pricing and configuration. Redshift allows for cost optimization using the reserved and the spot instances. Snowflake implements instantaneous autoscaling, while Redshift requires addition or removal of nodes. This is a good diagram, a comparison of big three. We say about the Redshift, it is shared nothing, massive parallel processing. When we say Snowflake, it has shared disk and shared nothing architecture. In case of Google BigQuery, it is shared nothing, massive parallel processing. When we talk about the data loading can be done through the different tools which are available. So all the three big players, they support all of this. Horizontal and vertical scaling is possible in all of them. When we talk about the performance of Snowflake is best in the class, and Redshift has good performance and the same for the BigQuery as well. Is Redshift similar to BigQuery? So Google BigQuery is serverless. Redshift supports 1,600 columns in a single table, but BigQuery supports 10,000 columns. So depending upon the use case, you can select the different data warehousing solution. Can Redshift be used for the OLTP? Probably that is not a good idea. Why would I think about storing the OLTP data in Redshift? Because it has multiple nodes. That doesn't make any sense. Does Redshift uses primary key? So you can enforce the uniqueness using the primary key and and foreign key, but they are not enforced by the Amazon Redshift. But if you are using the ETL processing for the loading, then yes, you can. Is BigQuery faster than Redshift? No, based on the different testing which has been done, it is found out the Amazon Redshift is faster as compared to the Google BigQuery. What is Snowflow? What is Snowflake not good for? Snowflake can run in Amazon, Google, and Microsoft public cloud, but there is no, it has not its own offering. In terms of the costing, it has higher cost, but that doesn't make. But these are some of the cons you can see. One of the cons is just the pricing model which it has, and that's all about the top questions which are very frequently asked. It comes to you, like what are the different things. So I hope these top questions are going to help you, and thank you.